The image of Brittney Griner with tears in her eyes told the story better than any box score could. Once the most feared center in women's basketball, she now found herself sidelined in the biggest game of Atlanta's season. Instead of dominating the paint, she sat watching as Aaliyah Boston, the Indiana Fever's rising star, imposed her will on both ends of the floor. It was a shocking reversal, one that left fans and analysts alike asking if this was the beginning of the end for Griner's legendary career. Boston's dominance wasn't just statistical, though the numbers were impressive enough: 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists in a knockout game where every possession mattered. Her presence went beyond the scoreboard. She denied Griner her comfort zones, bodied her out of the paint, and forced her into awkward shots that clanged off the rim. Time and again, Boston stood tall when Griner tried to lean on her old strengths. Where Griner once towered over opponents, now she looked hesitant, flat-footed, and frustrated. By the third quarter, the expression on her face told the story of a player realizing she no longer held the same grip over the game. Griner admitted after the loss that she was struggling. Her words carried the weight of someone who had once been the face of the league. "I try to give myself grace. Everybody says give yourself grace. It's so hard for me to do that. At the end of the day, it's my fault and I let everybody down." That vulnerability struck fans deeply because it didn't sound like post-game frustration. It sounded like resignation, the kind of reflection that hints at the twilight of a career. Boston, meanwhile, represented everything Griner once was. Poised, confident, and relentless, she seized the stage as though she'd been there before. With Caitlin Clark and 5 other Fever players sidelined, Boston had every reason to fold under pressure. Instead, she became the backbone of Indiana's resilience. She didn't just outplay Griner, she symbolically took her place. It felt like a passing of the torch, one generation bowing out as another rose in the same spotlight. But this game wasn't Boston's alone. Kelsey Mitchell played like someone possessed, pouring in 24 points with 19 coming in the first half when the Fever desperately needed someone to keep them within reach. Without her shot-making, Indiana's miracle run would have ended early. Odyssey Sims, a late-season addition, turned into an unlikely hero with 16 points and 8 assists. It was her calm decision-making that set up Boston's game-winning layup with 7.4 seconds left, the single play that broke Atlanta's spirit. And then there was Lexi Hull, whose name will now live in Indiana Fever lore. With Atlanta setting up a final possession, Hull anticipated the inbounds pass, leapt in front, and stole the ball cleanly. Just like that, the game was over. That steal didn't just seal the win, it symbolized Indiana's entire postseason, overlooked, underestimated, but fearless when it mattered most. The atmosphere in Gateway Center Arena only amplified the moment. Despite being on the road, Fever fans drowned out the Dream faithful in the second half. The injured stars on Indiana's bench, Clark, Cunningham, Chloe Bibby, were practically another lineup, shouting encouragement, offering advice, and rallying every possession. Clark herself, dressed in black Air Force Ones, paced the sideline like a coach. It was more than symbolic. It was energy, belief, and unity pouring onto the court. For Atlanta, the collapse was painful, but for Griner, it was devastating. A player who once dominated the postseason had been reduced to a bystander in the most important minutes. Coaches didn't trust her to finish. Fans started whispering about retirement, and analysts began openly asking if this series marked the end of her time as an elite center. The contrast with Boston was impossible to ignore. Griner's playoff averages used to be double-doubles without breaking a sweat. In this series, she hit career lows, at one point scoring just 2 points with 2 rebounds. Boston, on the other hand, not only outproduced her, but added a playmaking layer that Griner never consistently developed. 6 assists from a center in a playoff game is unheard of. It was proof that Boston wasn't just the present, she was the future. And yet, this wasn't a story of one legend falling. It was also about a team rediscovering its identity. Indiana hadn't won a playoff series since Tamika Catchings led them to the finals in 2015. A decade of disappointment had made fans question if the Fever could ever be relevant again. And then, in the span of one gritty, injury-depleted series, they rewrote their narrative. They proved heart can trump depth, belief can outlast adversity, and resilience can carry you when talent alone won't. Every player who touched the floor for Indiana had a moment. Brianna Turner's defensive work didn't make headlines, but her positioning and hustle gave Indiana stability. Aerial Powers blocked a critical shot in the fourth quarter, flipping momentum back in their favor. Even Michaela Timpson, who logged only 4 minutes, pulled down 5 rebounds in that short span, effort that mattered in a game decided by inches. This was not just a victory, it was a resurrection. And now, Indiana marches into the semifinals to face the Las Vegas Aces, the 2-time defending champions and the league's most intimidating powerhouse. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Vegas is healthy, loaded, and used to the brightest lights. Indiana is battered, pieced together, and still missing their superstar. Becky Hammon has already warned, they haven't seen the real Aces yet. It's a reminder that the next round will demand more than grit. It will demand greatness. For Boston, the test only grows harder. If dismantling Griner symbolized a passing of the torch, facing A'ja Wilson represents climbing Mount Everest. Wilson is versatile, dominant, and at the peak of her powers. To beat Vegas, Boston will need to summon every ounce of her strength and discipline. The battle in the paint will be brutal, and whoever wins it likely decides the series. But the Fever aren't shying away. Their win over Atlanta proved they can't be written off, no matter how depleted they look. Kelsey Mitchell's leadership, Odyssey Sims' poise, Hull's defensive instincts, and Boston's dominance all add up to something bigger than the sum of their parts. This team has been through everything: injuries, doubt, controversy, officiating drama, and still refuses to break. As for Griner, the heartbreak lingers. Her tears told us she knows her time as the league's most feared center may be over. But if this truly is the beginning of the end, her career will still be remembered as one of the most impactful in WNBA history. What Boston showed, though, is that the game never stops moving. The torch doesn't wait to be passed, it gets taken.